Well, once again, it's that time of year. We're speaking with Al Petrelli, the musical director and guitarist and original member of Trans-Siberian Orchestra. They're going to be up in Phoenix for the Lost Christmas Eve tour. It's going to be on Sunday, December 1st at Footprint Center Arena in downtown Phoenix. Great place to see the show. And they have two shows, as usual, 3 o'clock in the afternoon at 7:30 in the evening. And tickets go on sale on Friday the 13th, which is kind of a weird day to go on sale for you guys, but hey.
Yeah, then there's that.
But and you can get them at trans-siberian.com. So let's talk about it because this is a big tour for you guys. I've seen you guys many, many years. We've had many of these discussions over the years. And it's become a family tradition for me. And I know for a lot of people. And before we get into the meat and potatoes, we were kind of talking off air a moment ago. When you guys first started this, you and Paul, all those years and years and years ago, 30 something.
Working 30 years, yeah.
So when you guys did this, you were playing smaller venues, and it was kind of on a whim kind of thing. And now it's grown into this multi-city, like it's become a tradition for families.
Yeah.
How does that feel? And,
first of all, it's an amazing feeling. Listen, you and I have talked over the years many, many, many times, and I love our conversations. But what I will always tell you, and you know this, is that I don't spend a whole lot of time looking in the rearview mirror, figuratively speaking. I don't, because that means I'm concentrating on accomplishments past. I'm more concerned with what's in front of me, the task at hand.
Yes.
In context of what we're talking about today is this coming tour, how to make it better, how to make it just different enough to keep the folks I affectionately call the repeat offenders kind of on their heels a little bit.
I took my 11-year-old daughter to a concert, one of her first concerts. Actually, you guys were one of her first concerts, but one of her, pop bands. Yes.
Yeah.
But we were halfway through the show, and she looks at me, and we were at the same arena where you guys are going to be, and she goes, "Daddy, are we going to go to that show where it snowed and it was Christmassy?" And I go, "Yes, we are, honey. They're called Siberian Orchestra."
Well, and give her a big squish for me, would you? And a hug, and I look forward to meeting her this year.
I definitely will.
If you go back, and like you said, we're approaching almost 30 years. It'll be 30 years this coming February that I recorded those opening notes to Christmas Eve 12/24, and we did a bunch of records for a bunch of years and never did a show. And then we started touring in 95. And you're right, first of all, we started out, our first show was the Tower Theater in Philadelphia. Sold out in like a half an hour. This is awesome, And if you think about Bill Gates or Steve Jobs or Walt Disney or any of these empires that they created, it started out in the garage or in their basement or in their, wherever. A genius idea, an artistic creation that if you look at it now, you're like, oh my God, this is the biggest thing ever. But if you go back to, the trajectory of its evolution, then I can sit down and talk to you about where we are today in 2024. To have 21 tractor trailers, to have 12 buses to hopefully we'll sell out both shows again this year. I never assumed that. I work really hard to make sure that occurs. But in theory, to sell out, 30,000 seats in a day, you have to always put back, it's been a 25-year-old slow and steady climb.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And to me, I'll be 62 years old next week. Longevity has become my favorite accomplishment.
Yes.
To say that I've been doing this half my life. And when I talk to you, I can tell the enthusiasm and the excitement in your face and in your voice, and your daughter said, "Are we going to go to that, that orchestra thing when it snows?" Mission accomplished, brother.
Yeah.
Because it's as important today as it was when we spoke last year, if not even a little bit more important, because now your daughter, you're making memories with her. My kids who are upstairs doing their homework, they're coming to see me, I think, in Vegas for Thanksgiving. My youngest, Layla's 8 years old, and she's like, "Daddy, I can't wait to see your show. My spelling teacher loves your band too." People, I couldn't have marketed this, man. I couldn't have scripted this. Paul O'Neill, for all his genius, I don't know if he really saw the 30-year down the road big picture. I don't know. Maybe he did. But I'm so grateful to be on the opposite side of this computer talking to you about something that I watched open its eyes for the very first time 3 decades ago.
And this is also because it's called the Lost Christmas Eve Tour. It's the 20th anniversary.
Yeah. Of that
Like
record, of the release of that record. Like, where did the time go?
now, I understand you're doing besides the show, the tour being around that. You're also got some like a special re-release.
Well, yeah. So the 20th anniversary of the Lost Christmas Eve release, they decided to re-release it of all things on vinyl,
Yeah. Well, it's coming
which
back.
you know what it is, and I'm so grateful for a couple of reasons. First of all, I don't ever want to sound like my dad, rest of his soul, in context of this conversation, but it sounds better.
Yeah, I agree.
Not nearly as portable as this gadget.
Yeah.
I mean, and the thing is, if I want to listen to Stan Getz, if I want to listen to the Weather Report, got it instead of digging through my record collection.
Yes.
Uh, but it's interesting because my older daughter, Olivia, my wife and I bought her a turntable a couple Christmases ago, and now she has a huge stack of vinyl in her room. And it's weird because I'll walk past and all of a sudden I'm like, is that the soundtrack from Grease? you know, like when I was a teenager, so good art keeps crossing into different generations. But as far as the vinyl goes, the other kick is that when I was a kid, and if I got Dark Side of the Moon, or if I got Yes Fragile, or Brain Salad Surgery by ELP, or Yellow Brick Road
Hmm.
from Elton John, the artwork was as cool as what I was listening
Oh
to
yeah.
on the record. So I'd come home from school, pop out the record, put it on the turntable, not doing my algebra homework or whatever. And I put it on, and I'm able to open up this artwork and look at it, read the lyrics, and check it out. And that was another part of the experience. And the
Hmm.
artwork that they did on this re-release is spectacular. So people will have something to hold and look at while they're listening to the music and the poetry and all of that. So I think phones and computers and streaming, that's fine, dude. That's the generation we live in. But it's nice to go back. You
And,
know,
and and have the art
take it
behind
all
it.
in and have it all right there in front of you.
Yep. Yep. That and so that's out. Is it out now or is it coming out soon?
I think it's coming out real soon. I don't have an exact date, but I know it's being released ASAP, like as we're talking, probably. And I
So,
know it's also go on. Do me a favor, everybody, go on trans-siberian.com, go on the website, and you'll get the exact information from that,
oh, perfect. Yeah. And you
and
can
we'll know what's up with that.
and you can order from there as well, I presume.
Absolutely.
And you can also go there and get your tickets for so wherever you are in the country watching this, especially if
Yeah.
you're in Tucson, you can buy the Phoenix show, or if you want to go see it somewhere else, you
Right.
could go. All the tickets are available there.
Yeah, I would always start there because there's a lot of fraudulent sites and markups and all this stuff. And that's one thing that Paul was adamant about. He wanted to keep the ticket prices low, and he
Hmm.
wanted people to have access to it. And he never wanted this to be a mortgage payment to take a family of four out to see one of our shows. And I think, like, that for a limited amount of tickets, I know they're going for $49 a ticket.
Hmm.
I spent more than that last night taking my two daughters to Taco Bell.
Yeah, agreed. And that
You know,
reasonable. And plus, I was there last year, and I'd never actually walked past the Birch table. You guys got some really cool merch.
Yeah, yeah. Well, the gentleman in charge of all the artwork is a guy named Greg Hildebrandt, who Paul met Greg because Greg became a fan of the Trans-Siberian Orchestra. And then Paul found out after the fact that he was the one who was the original artist for all the Star Wars and the Lord of the Ring films.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I was
That's
like, oh, that's kind of cool. And he's doing all our artwork. And again, an artist's artist, perfect for Paul. When those two used to get into conversations, I'd check my watch and go, this is going to be a 5 hour thing. They would just go. It was brilliant watching the two of them together.
well, I got the video that I've posted of of your show, and I've actually posted some live stream stuff last year and years prior. If somebody has not seen a Trans-Siberian Orchestra show, how would you describe it to them to get them to come to the show? Because it's an experience.
It is. I would go in the opposite way and tell them whatever you think it is, you're 100% wrong. And it's a much shorter conversation.
Yes.
So, people have this, they'll go on YouTube or whatever they're doing, they'll look at videos and all that stuff. Is it an orchestral concert? Yeah. But is that what it is entirely? No. Is it that? Yeah. But entirely? No. Is it a Broadway show? Is it a theatrical presentation? Is it a Christmas concert? Is it a family concert? Yes and no to everything. So whatever you think you're in store for, sit down, hang on tight, because it's all of those things, or it's none of those things, yet all those things put together. We'll pull out a Rachmaninoff piece, we'll pull out a Beethoven symphony, a Mozart symphony. We'll do some good old-fashioned America arena rock and roll. We'll do a jazz thing, an R&B bit. There'll be a choir number. We have our narrator reciting the poetry that ties all the songs together throughout the story. And people get, not only are they listening to the music being performed and the visual brilliance of our department heads and our crew chiefs and what they were able to put together with us. But now it becomes like almost a three-dimensional situation because you listen to a band and you're watching it, but at the same time, there's this poetry being read that's linking you from character to character or circumstance to circumstance. And by the end of that journey together, most folks in the audience realize that I get it. And that happened to me. I lived this story. Put in name, date, and circumstance to Paul's work. It comes about you. And I think that's part of the commonality we all share because, people, there was, I don't know if I mentioned this to you last year, but I read a fascinating quote by Leonard Bernstein and he was referring to Beethoven and he said, true art needs to be accessible, but never ordinary.
Oh,
wow. Because it has to be accessible. You got to get it.
Yes.
Paul made it very, very, very accessible to the listener, to the viewer, or the one who's paying attention to the poetry and understanding, oh my God, I really relate to this story. But nothing about this show is ordinary.
No.
And that was a balancing act that he was brilliant at. One level of his genius.
How many people are in the band?
At any given time on stage, you got, I think, 26 or 27 people when we're firing, full orchestra, full choir.
Yeah, and each one of your
and 100 people underneath stage.
Yeah, because I was watching, and you guys do the lifts up into the air, and I'm looking at that going, that's kind of dangerous. But I'm seeing your people coming out and linking them in, like you don't even notice they're doing that.
Yeah, and we rehearse so much, every facet, every aspect of the story. Because listen, if you think about it, your daughter, she's sitting in the audience, and she's having hopefully a great time. She shouldn't know what it took to put this show on. Why would she know that? She's 11 years old, you said, right? Our job is to meticulously go over every detail so many times that it becomes a choreographed execution of this thing. The audience shouldn't know about that. It should be seamless. I want them to focus on what they need to focus on. Right down to the order in which the trucks and the buses come in and out of the arena has been rehearsed. The audience member knows two things. I love this, or not so good. It's our job to pay attention to where the devil in the details lie.
Yes.
And that's what so we've been working on this upcoming tour since the second week of January.
Oh, wow. So this is a year-long project.
Year-long. You do not just scratch your head in August and say, hey, dude, let's do this. Conversation after conversation, meeting after meeting, email after email, just to make sure that it's bigger, better, and just different enough that people go, wow, that was really cool.
Well, everything I'm reading, this is bigger and better than any other show you've done, is what I'm saying. Can you give a little clue about any of the changes for those who've seen you before?
Yeah, musically, absolutely. So we're going to go back and perform. Speaking of the Lost Christmas Eve, it is the 20th anniversary of its release. And we thought, wow, we haven't done that story since 2012 in its entirety. We've played a lot of the songs from that record in the shows, because you got Wizards and Winter, you got the Christmas Count, you got the Wish List, all these songs that people really love. But we haven't done Soup to Nuts as a piece since I think 12 or 13. And the songs are great. And when I got home from last year's tour, I went and put ears on it and I listened to it. I'm like, this is just a beautifully written story, great soundtrack, great music, everything about it. And we decided, let's do this. And the last time we did it, 12, 13 years ago, that was the 12, 13-year-old technology we had at the time. So imagine what our crew, how that's grown, and technology has made advances. What they're going to be able to do with this to bring it to life visually is going to be absolutely breathtaking. I haven't seen any of the production yet. I mean, I've seen sketches and drawings that I've chatted about it with the department heads, because they'll call me up and say, Al, I need come up with some underscore. I need 45 seconds for this to get staged or this to get placed. I'm like, all right, you got it. But I won't really know until I get to rehearsal in Council Bluffs, third week in October. and I'll land at Omaha, Nebraska airport,
Uh-huh.
and they're like, "Hey, Mark, you want to go to the hotel?" I'm like, right to the venue. I want to walk into this venue before anybody else and see what they've been talking about because I feel like a 15-year-old kid all over again.
So will it be set up for you when you walk in and you'll go,
It'll be getting there. Yeah,
okay.
it'll be getting there. But the absolute scope of like how many cases and the riggers will be like hanging from the ceiling 200 feet in the air, hanging the points and getting ready. I'm like, I live for this stuff, every aspect of it. And that's the fun part, or one of the fun parts.
Well, one thing I've noticed in years past, I mean, obviously you have the narrator and you have the everybody kind of has their own solo, from the violin and the different vocalists that you have. But I kind of noticed, besides the narrator, you're the main dude. You're the one talking to the crowd, thanking them for coming and the whole thing.
Yeah, I must have lost a bet. Somehow I ended up doing that. That started in '99 at the first show where we finished the story portion of the show. And nobody's talking. I'm like, all right, well, I'm going to grab the mic. And I spent a lot of years being a sideman for a lot of great front artists, Alice, Dee Snider, Taylor Dane, so on and so forth. And I learned a lot from how they deal with audiences. Alice didn't talk that much, and Dee made up for that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I had a really good education, how to deal with an audience. So I just gravitated towards the mic, started talking, and Paul was like, "Yeah, that's pretty good. You do it." Because I don't want to talk to the audience.
Yeah.
I want to have a conversation with the audience.
Oh, yeah. And you're very conversational on stage.
Well, same thing like me and you talking. I've always tried to dispel the distance between audience and band. I don't want anything to do with that. We're celebrating Paul O'Neill's work and his story together. So I want to let you in on the joke. I want you to know how much fun we're actually having. It's a live rock show. You never know what's going to go on. Somebody yells something out in the audience, I'm going to yell back at them. Some sort of complimentary, dude, what's up?
So, one thing about the show too is you bring the show, like, I've sit on the floor. You bring the show out to the audience too. Like,
Yeah,
I'm looking up and I'm like, is that safe? Or behind us,
what's behind us?
yeah, it's like crazy, crazy stuff going on.
Well, that's what I tell people. Don't get jammed up when you go to buy tickets. Don't worry about where your seat is, because, and as you just said, the last row in the arena becomes the front row.
Yeah.
And the scope of the production is so massive, that my wife comes, with the exception of COVID, she comes almost every year we've been together. And she's like, like I sat in the back for this show, and it's a completely different show than, being in the fifth row or the sixth row. It's a completely different experience, So no matter where you are, just be there. Just be in the building. We're going to have a good time together.
Well, it's kind of like my favorite band is Floyd. And
Yeah.
one of the things that I loved about them is back when they were touring, if they played 2 nights, I would get one night up front and one night in the back. And you guys have a very similar vibe.
Well, Paul O'Neill was a huge Pink Floyd fan. I mean, we grew up in New York City, and he went to see The Wall at the Garden.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So imagine like being a kid, a young adult, whatever, in Madison Square Garden, probably, one of the most famous venues in the world, seeing Roger Waters and Gilmore and Company articulating The Wall.
Yeah.
Or imagine, going to see The Who, you perform Tommy. Or again, if down the block from the Garden is the Theater District on Broadway, you're going to see Andrew Lloyd Webber's work, or going to Lincoln Center and seeing Leonard Bernstein conduct, the New York Philharmonic doing Mahler's Second Symphony. I mean, you get an education like that, you're drinking from the original wells. And that's what Paul put together when we saw Tony. He goes, brother, if this ever comes to be, I'm going to put on the biggest rock show ever.
Well, and it's a rock opera.
Totally.
Yeah, 100%. One of the things that a lot of people don't realize too is when you guys do these tours, you're doing 2 shows a day for like 30 days, even longer than that.
6 weeks, give or take.
Okay, you do it, and you're doing 2 shows a day. You're nonstop.
Mostly.
But a lot of people probably don't realize that you give a portion of your proceeds go to a local charity in that town. How long you been doing that?
From day one. Listen, again, I'm always going to go back to, Paul O'Neill, right? So I met Paul in 1985. Friendly, we'd see each other, run across each other in the city, hang out, let's go get a slice of pizza, say, hey, I'm working on this thing in the studio, come with me, whatever. All right, cool. So we're walking up 8th Avenue, 3rd Avenue, whatever part of New York we happen to be in. And I'd be talking to him and I turn around, I'm like, where is he? He's like halfway back to 33rd Street. I'm like, dude, what are you doing? And what he's doing is somebody who's obviously very down on their luck. I don't want to use a homeless person. I don't like that name. But somebody who's having not a very good time of it right now.
Yeah.
And Paul's reaching into his pocket and handed him a 10 or a 20, whatever he had. And I go, that was really sweet of you, dude. Nice, you know. And he goes, look, the $10 bill is not going to change my life. It may change this person's day. We don't know why he got here or she got here, but give them a chance to kind of like shake it off. Maybe they'll have a little bit better of it tomorrow if I can give them the opportunity to have it better today.
Yeah.
You're a great human being. So you fast forward 95, we start working together. 99, we're going to start doing our first shows. And the Tower Theater was the first show we ever did, 1999. And I remember him telling me it sold out in 30 minutes. Awesome. And, you know, so anyway, we're at the show and, you know, it's like the afternoon. I'm sitting in his dress room and he goes, just so you know, I'm going to donate $1 from every ticket we sold tonight. There's a charity that I really like in Philadelphia. Like, dude, that's awesome. You know, whatever the number was, $2,800, $3,000, whatever the cap on the tower was. Next night in Chicago, next couple nights in Cleveland, New York, Boston. And that became his thing of saying, A, thank you to the community, letting the people who came to the show know that you bought the ticket, one of your dollars is going back into your community.
Yes.
To help whatever charitable organization he was involved with, you know, depending on region and market, you know. And he told me, he goes, we're going to do this from the first ticket sold to the last ticket we ever sell. And he only told me that one time. So I'm like, you know, there's that old saying, like, pay very close attention to the quietest person in the room. He ain't talking about it, dude. He's doing it.
Absolutely.
And I think the number that came up last week was we've sold 20 million tickets.
That's like $20 million.
Hey, you do the math. So
Yeah.
the dollar added up a lot, man. And I'm so proud of him and his family for continuing on his legacy. But when you think about that, he did something, he implemented, he stayed true to it, and he never really talked about it. And here we are. He made a difference in the world. He changed lives, you know,
And still his legacy.
in perpetuity.
Yep.
Still carrying on, you know. And he always said he wanted this thing to live long past all of us. And one of the things, aside from the art, aside from the stories, aside from the characters, this will live on as well as long as TSO is still doing its thing, you know. And who knows really what impact it has made on a person, on a family, on a child.
Yep.
You know, we don't know, brother. I just know that I'm so proud of what he's done and what we continue to do in his name.
Well, one thing I'm looking forward to is my daughter just picked an instrument in elementary school.
Love it.
She's
What
picked a
instrument is she doing?
cello. Cello?
My daughter too.
Oh, really?
Yeah, she just brought it home. It's the cutest thing I've ever seen.
Yeah, she's got like what they call a 3/4. So
Yeah,
because she's not full sized. And
Yep.
she actually did her first little recital, but it was just where they're learning to pluck and use a string. And so she's excited. She has to bring it. I help her bring it to school and then she brings it home. And
love that.
but I think at the show, because there's
Excuse me.
she's going to see some of this stuff
Yeah.
that she, hopefully it'll inspire her some more.
I've witnessed that firsthand a lot of times, and that's something I'm very, very proud of. Is when kids come home, or after a show, and they go home, and I'll find out maybe the next year if I see the family on the autograph line or at the meet and greet, and because of your show, my daughter is taking violin lessons or singing lessons, or my son wants to play guitar, dude. And like, that's awesome. Last year, my daughter Layla came to the show, and her bestie in the band is Asha, our violin player.
Oh yeah.
And then when Layla was given the opportunity at the end of second grade before the summer break, they asked her, "What would you like to play in the orchestra?" She goes, "Yeah, I want to play the cello." And I'm like, "Okay." So living it. Now, mind you, last night we were practicing, her plucking and her technique, and she's like, "Oh my God, Daddy, stop it! You don't know what you're doing." Really?
Wow.
Okay.
That's amazing.
Yeah, right up until the time she wanted me to teach her how to play the Moana theme, and then I became cool again. Well, listen, your daughter, my daughter, let's always, keep in touch and compare notes on how they're doing, because playing a musical instrument is one of the greatest things ever.
Yeah, I'm so proud of her for
Good.
she seems excited about it. And
It's one of the
she's
most beautiful sounding instruments. It's so beautiful.
oh yeah, and I've heard some of those bands like Apocalyptica and
They're
different
awesome.
and some of these other bands that do like the rock stuff, and you're like, yeah, there's a
Yeah.
total quality to it that's just amazing.
Well, when you think about the great composers and some of the classical pieces, I mean, yeah, they're being played on mainly stringed instruments and wind instruments and percussive, orchestral percussive instruments. But as living proof, those themes are heavy. You know, when we hit the downbeat of Beethoven's Fifth, it's just like, that is heavy, heavy, heavy.
Oh, yeah, and people like I remember listening to old thrash metal records back in the day,
Yeah.
and I would like relax to it. My buddy goes, "How can you relax to it?" I go, "Dude, it's so fast, it's slow." And they never understood that. And I go, "Well, I'm hearing it's mathematical. It's
Yeah,
it's you know."
exactly.
And they go, "How can
Exactly.
you do that?" And I go, I find it relaxing. I don't, but music is all, as I tell people, all music is personal. No music is bad.
No, yeah, man, so perfectly said. When I was a kid in the 60s, there was one radio station in New York, WABC AM. You know, so the two genres of music that I was exposed to back then was good and bad.
Yes.
And done. Everything, there's more genres, subgenres, subsets, there's more formats than you know what to do with, which
Oh,
fine.
oh yeah.
But being a child and a student of music, ever since I saw the Beatles in '64 and Ed Sullivan, it was either I like this or I don't like this.
Yep.
And little did I know, and again, Paul O'Neill, the same thing. We come from the same area of Long Island, pretty close in age, and he was listening to the same stuff. One minute you have a Bernstein piece coming through AM radio, a Beatles piece, a Beach Boys, Gladys Knight, Marvin Gaye, something from The Sound of Music. Love this, love this, love, and not so much, and keep going on. Little did we know that he was being wired up to create the Trans-Siberian Orchestra in context of a rock opera or a Broadway show or whatever. And I was educating myself musically to understand what he meant and what he wanted, and to
Yep.
be able to play it on any given instrument. Music's fascinating that way. He would have come up, he'd come up to me and goes, I got this idea for this. And my brain runs back to 1970, where I heard something. I was like, you mean this?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Music. A lot of stuff I did not like when I was younger, I actually like now.
Yeah, agreed. I
You know.
sometimes I'm too young to appreciate it, to understand it.
Yep.
Like for me, the '60s bossa nova invasion, with Joe Beam and all these wonderful Brazilian artists. I didn't really get it. I thought it was like old people music, drinking martinis like from a James Bond movie.
Yeah.
You know. When I really started studying Brazilian jazz, absolutely fell in love with it.
Oh
In
yeah.
love with it. And when I met my wife, she's like, "If you weren't doing this, what would you do?" I was like, "Be in a Joe Beam tribute band."
Wow. Yeah, because all music is different and it affects you at different parts of your life.
Exactly. And it represents different parts of your life, which is fascinating.
Yes.
How many times have you heard a song and it transcended you right back to where you heard it the first time?
I This could sound lame. It sounds stupid. Anytime I hear Seasons in the Sun, I'm 6 years old again in Ohio.
All over again.
Yeah, it's crazy.
All over again. Listen, I went to visit my mom and all my aunts and uncles at the end of the summer. They're all down in Fort Lauderdale, where Italian people from the five boroughs go.
Yes.
Anyway, but and I think we were sitting there chatting about something, and in the background, I think some Gladys Knight and the Pips song came on, and I looked at my uncle and I said, "1971, I was at the party when you came home from Vietnam, and that song was playing." And he went, "What?"
Yeah.
And I described the entirety visually of the party to him. I remember the party lights hanging on the picket fence, what was hanging, the toilet paper in the trees, the welcome home, Jerry sign,
Yep.
music. And it was 50 years ago,
Yep.
in a flash, I went back.
I told my friends, and you may know the guys in this band, but I used to hate Nothing But a Good Time by Poison when it was out. That song just drove me nuts.
Huh?
But now when I hear it, it brings me back to tubing down the Salt River in Phoenix with my friends drinking beer, having a good time, because that's what was blaring over the radios all the time back then. So it brought me back, and I
Absolutely.
go, now I have a good memory with it.
Yeah. Listen, if I never hear Stairway to Heaven again on the radio, I'm okay.
Yep.
But every time I hear it, I got to turn it up
Yeah.
because it's a masterpiece. That Freebird,
Yep.
Hotel California, whatever it is. Like my education introduction. Paul Rogers came to play with us one day, a bunch of
Oh,
years ago. We did New Year's Eve with him in Seattle, and he opened his mouth and started singing. I don't know. We would jam it in the dressing room. We would do like "Ready for Love" or "Bad Company," and he started singing. It was 1974 all over again, except he was in the room.
oh, that's gotta be even cooler experience.
And an absolute gentleman. But
Wow.
listen, I love our conversations together. I love talking about this, and I always, appreciate the fact that you are as stoked about it as I am.
Well,
You
we
know,
definitely are. And I'm looking forward to it again for those listening. The Lost Christmas Eve Tour, Trans-Siberian Orchestra at the Footprint Center Arena in Phoenix, Sunday, December 1st. 2 shows, 3 and 7:30. Hardest working guy in show business right here. Okay, two
one
shows.
of.
Yeah, your whole band. I mean, and all the people working for you. And it's can't be easy to reset that whole thing to go back on at 7:30. So props
Not
to
that
all of
bad,
you.
no. It's not that bad. It really isn't. Listen, I mean, I'm already dressed,
That's true. But I mean,
and you
your
put
your workers underneath doing everything, they got to reset, I would presume.
they got to reset, but a lot of them have been with me for 20 something years.
They got it.
They love it. They know it's going to be the hardest job they've ever loved, and they come back going, "All right, boss, let's go again. Come on, we're ready." And, listen. By the third week of December, they're tired, and rightfully so, because they're in the building at 6 a.m. and they're not out until midnight.
Yeah.
But we've never ever missed a downbeat ever.
No,
You know,
you guys, I'm always amazed how you do it.
Well, and that's why I bring them out on stage every year at the last show. You know, I
When you
don't want
think,
to talk about the crew any longer. And you see me, I
yeah,
acknowledge the crew every show.
yep.
But that last show, I bring them out because I want them to see. I want the folks in the audience to see who is responsible for putting this together because they never get to get the fan appreciation that way.
Oh, that's
You
awesome.
know? And they deserve it. I mean, their artistry, they're great at their artistry. Like I try to be really good at mine. And it's a combined coordinated effort between band and crew.
Yep.
I make their stuff look cool, and they make what people are hearing from me look amazing.
Yes. Yeah, it's a great show. Well, I'm looking forward to it. And again, the re-release of the
Lost Christmas Eve.
Lost Christmas the Lost Christmas Eve tour. The Lost Christmas is out next month, maybe.
No, I'm gonna. You know what? I don't want to give misinformation. I should know this. I don't know why I don't. But go on the website, and that will have the information. I don't know if it's going to be a bonus for buying the tickets. I don't know if you could just order it right there. I apologize for not knowing that one. But let's go to the website and find out what the truth really is on that.
Trans-Siberian.com.
Absolutely.
Al, thank you once again for taking time out of a busy day and hanging out. Looking forward to the show in December. And you be safe in your travels. And we'll see you in a couple months.
All right, my brother. Thank you. I always enjoy our time together. My love to your family. Respect always. And I'll see you, straight up in a couple months. It's going to be awesome.
It's going to be great. I can't wait, man.
All right, my bud.
All right.
Much love.
Thanks a lot, my friend. Take care.